you can literally see the bottom of the barrel. You're scared, but you're shipping even though you're scared.
I am joined today by my friend Utpal, who is the co-founder of Digger.dev. And I've known Utpal for a really long time and seen the trajectory of Digger.dev. We talk about like the dark days and then how they got through that and how now they're just going from strength to strength.
We're literally shipping something new every day. Like, some of the ideas were almost crazy. It was an existential crisis. Let's put it that way, right? People don't believe in you until they do, and then they don't stop believing in you.
You moving to SF?
Yeah, we are. We are moving to SF. We found out super early that a large chunk of our customer base lives there, lives like in the city. The most helpful and the loudest customers were there. And we did a couple of trips where we just went to their offices, sat with them, started gathering feedback, what works, what doesn't work. There's huge backlog that still exists, like just from that trip, and like more trips like
than
that
you can even get.
100%. And the quality of feedback, and this is the primary reason, I think, because just the loop of you shipping stuff that they need and them getting back and then going through that loop multiple times, I think builds. So I have a firm belief that the type of customer you get begets the next type of customer you get, right? Like, so it was an internal belief that if people like that do not become our core user base, we lose because it's just not fast enough. It's just not, the loop isn't quick enough.
Yeah.
And it's just been helpful that way. And that was sometime last year. Also, risk capital, access to risk capital, this is obvious, right? Like it's the best there. People understand how open source monetization works, what GTM works for DevOps, what GTM works for cybersecurity, what GTM works for, DevTools is a broad category. Your persona is not real. Like the first persona that actually evangelizes or uses your tool is slightly different for different tools. Is this a front-end centric tool? Is this, I don't know, like there's different, it's tailored to different personas, even within a specific tool. Like for example, I was tweeted about this yesterday, like a Codium or a Windsurf, right? Like they have a separate enterprise product and a separate product for like hackers, the YC persona, hacking out of a dorm room. There's two separate products. So we think that access to different personas, like mini personas internally underneath your actual persona is very easy. And also the fact that obviously access to risk capital. So that's the reason why we're moving to SF. Long story short.
Yeah. Well, how are you like paint the picture? Because I remember Colin from Clerk talking about like just standing, like he was just like watching his early customers use Clerk, and like that was super helpful. Like what was it like? Like you were just like, hey, you want to go for coffee, or like what?
No, it's that's the good thing about open source. People are willing to talk to you because they have issues that need to be solved. Every single, like our Slack community is growing super fast. And every single, if we want to talk to somebody and that person has used Digger long enough, they're willing to talk to you regardless of whether there's anything coming out of that call, because the tool has given them something to talk about. So they'll come and talk to you about their pains. They'll come and talk, like this is not even like it, you don't even have to try hard. But how we do things is almost like, hey, can we sit with you or your team and understand how you'd see Digger growing internally in the next 6 months, maybe. Adam Frankel's book has this wand, whatever you want to call it. I don't know the right pronunciation, but like what I'm trying to say is like, if you have that, if you have this magic spell, what would you do, right? Like that's actually a powerful question. It's not necessarily just a top of the funnel question, but it's also a question to people for open source specific reasons, people using your free thing. People using your open source thing, what would you want that doesn't exist yet? It's a powerful sort of question to ask, and people are opinionated, people will share. But regardless of that, it's just in their open source workflow even, right? Every open source tool can be better.
Yeah.
Like it's a given, right? Like just the open source
Yeah.
journey, right? Maybe tools that have been around for 20 plus years, maybe they figured everything out, but like, why are there 250 issues every single day? Like they are opinionated, and you learn. And the learning is incremental in the sense that you talk to 10 people, let's say, you start seeing recurring patterns. You start seeing, okay, here's their most burning need. I'm trying to stop me when I repeat what Adam Frankel's already said, because a large part of it.
Adam Frankel deserves to be repeated.
But like, it helps to get to a point where everybody says the same thing, and then it gets to a point where, why haven't we done it yet?
Yeah.
And that loop has happened multiple times, continues to happen, by the way, and it's super annoying because at every single point, iteratively, there's always another loop that you need to do. And like, we've done a few loops like that. We know that some loops need to be done that are in the backlog.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to get at is, you speak to people long enough. You speak to people for who, and it's super, like, we're super careful in choosing who we speak to as well. We have like a persona in mind. If it's outside of that persona, I think the open source thing is good enough for them, and like they can continue to use it. We're optimizing for a certain type of user, and if they fall in that category, and stuff is repeating after a certain significant amount, why haven't we done it yet? And that's the accountability factor. I'm not claiming that we've done everything that users want either. We're a super small team even now. But yeah, it just helps in that sense.
Scaling DevTools is sponsored by WorkOS. If things start going well, some of your customers are going to start asking for enterprise features. Things like audit trails, SSO, skim provisioning, role-based access control. These things are hard to build, and you could get stuck spending all your time doing that instead of actually making a great dev tool. That's why WorkOS exists. They help you with all of those enterprise features. And they're trusted by OpenAI, Vercel, and Perplexity. And for user management, the first 1 million monthly active users are completely free. Let's hear from Utpal from Digger.dev, a dev tool using WorkOS.
How it's designed is that you can start as early as day zero. But for us, it wasn't day zero. It was closer to when we first started monetizing, because we didn't have a sign up at all. People could just anonymously use our tool. So it was a little later. It coincided with when we wanted to start monetizing, and like, we needed a nice enterprise feature set. If you're open source and you're doing enterprise first, the minute you think about monetization is when you should think about WorkOS. To be honest, if we do that again, I think we'd think about that on day zero, to be honest, because like, we should have done it on day zero, ideally. Anonymous usage should be permitted, but you should know who's using your tool. It should be optional, 100%. It should be opt-in, 100%. But it'd be great to have auth from day zero. You don't necessarily think about these enterprise features, but they still lead to revenue. And it kind of is a no-brainer in that sense. So yeah, I highly recommend.
So we're timing this so that you will have announced this by then. But it's you, Igor, and Mo right now.
Yeah.
And has been for a while.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a crazy amount of progress that you guys have made. But I know it's not always been easy. So maybe you could share a little bit about the times that, maybe you could take us back to like the darkest time.
Yeah.
First of all. But now
which one? there have been so many. But yeah, it's like, the skill sets are so complementary. It's great. But
so we've got Mo, who's like hardcore, like.
So if there's a spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Mo's I'd call him a 100x engineer. He's almost maintained it with Igor for the last couple of years. It's used in production in the most compliance sensitive enterprises, like the open source product, and it's being maintained by them 24 hours, right? Like, and there's support needed in Australia for a bank, and there's support needed for government organizations in the United States, and like, it's being done on a 24-hour basis for the last 2-ish years, right?
Yeah.
So coming back to the spectrum,
and such a nice guy as well. Just
100%.
The nicest guy.
Like, we have so many debates. And Mo's the kind of guy who just wants to ship. Like, he's one of the most cracked engineers I've ever worked with. And seen, and I've seen a few. Honestly, massive respect for him. So Mo on the most technical side. Igor has massive experience with working in one of the best organizations in the world in the past. He's super experienced. He is product centric as well. So he brings that technical plus product sort of mindset, and he sits there.
He's like a mad scientist as well. Like I feel
100%.
like he's like kind of that kind of persona of like,
absolutely, and yeah, very interesting persona. Very opinionated persona.
Yeah.
We have fierce debates. Like it's crazy the kind of debates we have, all constructive. And I'm not just saying this because it's a podcast, but it's genuinely
no. I've spent a lot of time with these guys.
It's great, honestly. Sometimes we get frustrated that we're constructively debating more than we're shipping, but then we look at the result and then we realize we ship way more than the average person.
Yeah.
But there's so much debating that's gone into it that like nothing else can exist but like that thing. So Igor slightly, I'd say more product centric, but like super technical as well. I'm the least technical, but I've gotten more and more technical as my time here has gone on. Handle more user facing stuff. I don't know how people find us, for example.
Yeah.
How neat are our docs, which is admittedly can be way better, right? Like, but like that's top and middle of the funnel stuff is what I handle. Like, how can we get more people on our Slack? How can we? Well, support is a burning issue. We're still working on how to fix that. Mo and Igor have been the two people working on that. But what helped us is that, look, with this team, we got it to 500,000 plus downloads. We got it to 4.5K stars. We have over 300 organizations using it in production every single day. Over the last couple of months, our usage has gone up 2.53x, in terms of deployments per day. So we have the growth. We've done so much, and I think it was on the back of that we went out to SF to raise, and we closed the round recently.
But I think it's even more interesting, your story, in the sense that it was like, when I first met you guys, it was like you were working on something that was like quite different back in the day. And it was like you had raised money, you had this like great team, and I think it's like but it was just this I don't want to say impossible, it's like the hardest product to build in DevTools, which is like the kind of like AWS but easy to use. And there's people doing it, and it's like super hard. And I think like we've spoken about this on the other podcast that we did, but like it was like you got to this point where it was like kind of running out of money. Like it's just like it's suddenly just you three guys. It's like I think most people would have like honestly not have been able to like come through that period. But you just like you kept going, and it's like it's seriously like incredible.
Some would call us crazy though. Like if we look at I don't know, family situations where we were like in the last year or so, it's crazy. Like the stuff we've done to stay afloat. At some point, like we're staying, like you can literally see the bottom of the barrel, and like at that time you're scared, but you're shipping even though you're scared because like users keep knocking on your door and you keep doing that stuff. We spoke to a lot of people, and I think one other thing about about SF is that the community is great. I genuinely want to mention Michael Greenwich here because like a conversation with him where we were actually toying with what next, right? Like okay, it was almost like what next basically, but he sat us down and said that people would actually die for what we have today. Like they would genuinely be super happy that you can call it project market fit, right? I used to call it product community fit, and I know you mentioned that it doesn't exist as a term, and we invented it or whatnot.
On the last one, did I?
No, offline, I think. It's multiple iterations where I keep sending you stuff on WhatsApp and whatnot. But yeah, by the way, Jack's super helpful. Even like I keep sending stuff that we're shipping to him, and he keeps roasting it for us. It's super helpful. But what I was getting at is in that conversation with Michael and a bunch of others, I think Michael's was the most helpful. we went to some meetups and kept sharing what we were thinking about, what we were doing. And the most impressive thing that we'd done was the open source thing, was Digger, the open source project. It was the fact that it works. People use it every day. Make something people want, right? Like, people want this thing. They're using it every day. There is a market for it. Incumbents are making money off of it. Why are you doing anything else?
Yeah.
That was the thing. And like,
And you said once you turned off the demos, right?
yeah, it was a very interesting time, because like, we shut the link to the only way to use the enterprise product. We've had multiple iterations on this as well, but the only way to use the enterprise product back then, and hopefully not anymore, is we should have self-service ASAP by the time this is released, hopefully. But like, how back when this happened, how people could access the enterprise product was only through a demo, and that was the only way a commercial intent gets exposed to our team. We thought, okay, we're figuring stuff out. Let's just remove that link on the landing page. There are often links elsewhere, right? Like, there's some in the docs, some on Medium, some on blog posts, and like, where else, right? Like, I don't know.
Hidden though. Let's say hidden.
Yeah, hidden. Yeah, there are links elsewhere, which I didn't know about, but existed.
Someone put them there.
Yeah, someone put them. Someone put them. The only person who handles the blog is in this room. so that's someone put it there.
Who wrote this code? Oh, oops, that was me. Yeah.
But funnily enough, we had that week. It was an existential crisis. Let's put it that way, right? Like, we're literally shipping something new every day. Like, some of the ideas were almost crazy, right? Like, we were almost like, wake up, ship something new, see if it works.
Was this during the days of the like product on launches still?
No, it was much later.
This was later.
Much later. The open source thing was working.
Okay.
Right. Like,
but it was like shipping related things to the open source.
Not really.
Really? It's fully rogue.
And the thing is, right? Like, we're getting demos from the best of the best companies, right?
Yeah.
The outbound, inbound doesn't matter, but like, we're speaking to the likes of ServiceNow, we're speaking to Palo Alto Networks, we're speaking to all of these guys who are extremely impressed
with Digger,
the open source project. They've heard of it.
Yeah.
DevOps engineers in their team know about it, and then we're like, look, we're working on this new thing. We're doing this tab. Like, does this matter or not? Like, what are we on about, right?
Yeah.
Like that. And the realization came very interestingly, because we got 2 or 3 inbound demos booked in that week when the link didn't exist.
Yeah.
So basically, they had to find it and book it.
Yeah.
That was number one. And B, we also got the single highest like weekly usage by deployments. I may be wrong here, but there's an event, and I think it's deployments for the sake of the podcast.
So you built something that people you built something people wanted.
Yeah.
You kind of were like, is it because like it was so familiar? Like you're like, yeah, like you kind of didn't appreciate what you had.
100%. Also,
by the way, also say what Digger, the open source project, is, just in case anyone hasn't.
It's a Terraform automation tool. Simply, it helps non-ops engineers to use Terraform easily in pull requests. So that's what it does. It is open source. So I think a large function of what happened there was what most open source maintainers would face. I think we've spoken about this offline, but like, the hardest part about any commercial open source project, especially if you're not starting open core with something proprietary from day zero, is when do you turn on the monetization switch? There are people with different opinions about this. People say you bundle your open source thing with a proprietary thing and just give that as a package. GitLab does that really well. You can't tell what's open core from what's not, and then what's proprietary from what's not. You use the package. It's effectively GitHub, but open source. But like, it's great. And they call it buyer-based open core. It's a beautiful model. I think Sid has written extensively about it. But I may have butchered what it means, by the way. But from a layman's perspective, it's bundled proprietary stuff with open source stuff and give it as a package. But what I'm trying to get at is the crisis that we had internally is a crisis that any open source maintainer / commercial open source founder would have, which is how best to position your monetization. It was simply because we hadn't made money for the longest time, right? Like, and we started making money after that, and like it became repeatable, and it's gotten much better since then. But like, I think it's a challenge, and we haven't fully figured this out, like many others who also haven't figured it out but are figuring it out as they go. I think there's a catch-22 situation where when do you turn on the switch? Like too early, and there's no evangelism. There's nobody knows about you. Like, you're effectively a SaaS tool at that point, which is proprietary, whatnot. Cool, but like your open source angle loses its
pizzazz.
Yeah, exactly. And you do it too late, and they call licensing change, rug pull, whatnot, right? Like, we all know who like the defaulters here, defaulters. but like, what I'm trying to say is that there is no right time in that spectrum, and like it's just a learning, I guess, that we're not alone here. A large number of open source projects face this problem. We've just got to keep shipping, and we've got to find ways to charge people, just like that loop that I spoke about earlier, right? That is with a customer for usage, and there's a similar loop for monetization. You do the first loop, doesn't work. Okay, what would you pay for now? And then you do another loop, doesn't work. What would you pay for now? And then we've started. I think there are usage loops and there are monetization loops, and they're not fully separate, but they're distinct projects on their own, I think. That is why, like, for example, a great example is PlanetScale and BitS. It's like two separate things almost, but like, it's great how they've monetized it. I think their branding is great. The way they're acquiring users is great. A different way to do it is Next.js and Vercel. It's a satellite service, and like, it's not even open source, but like, they're known for their open source contribution. They keep acquiring, new and cool open source companies. There's different ways to do this, and obviously, I'm the worst person to mention this because like, there are much better people who've written about this, and it's literature's out there. What I'm trying to get at is that it's just interesting that like it exists out there, and we just were freaking out internally. Like that's what happened. SF helped, and Michael helped, and here we are. That's it is what it is.
So it's like, I guess open source becomes like, if you build something so good, why would anyone, if they could just use the amazing open source project, how they give you money? And then I think going to SF, speaking to like Michael, others, you realize that actually that's a solvable problem.
Yep.
And the hard bit is what you've already done.
100%. I am not against London as an ecosystem, but like, there's not many commercial open source founders you can go and knock on their doors and say, "What's up, man? Like, how are you handling this?" Postdoc has done it really well, but a postdoc is interesting because the initial open source project and what they've built today.
Which I think James has said publicly that like the SaaS is the focus.
Yeah, great. And they're doing really well. Yeah. So massive respect for them. But other than that, we don't have people of our stage.
Yeah. We got, I guess, like you and Trigger.
Yeah, there are a few. Like the London.
I guess you don't have like the people that you could go talk to, like Mitchell, Hashimoto, or like, 100%. Like these kind of guys. Not that he's an SF.
The thing is, it kind of helps to have people failing the same failures as you. Like that. I don't know if this makes sense, but like, you need to have the same failures as somebody else. Like, you need to be facing the same problems. You need to have. It's if you don't have a community of people facing the same problems from a monetization, like this is. I think there's great non-commercial open source in Europe and the UK in general, historically as well.
Yeah.
But we just couldn't find the community that we did in SF. And it was one of the factors in saving the company. Also, like, we're all figuring it out kind of vibe, right? Like,
Yeah.
people are at Series C, Series D, and they're still figuring it out.
Yeah.
And
Different.
you don't have to have it all figured out
Yeah.
to clear those landmarks. That was also a learning for us.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah. Kind of an aside, but like, which kind of contemporary founders like have you enjoyed like chatting with, riffing off, that people should follow?
Interesting. I'd say Michael for sure. Anurag from Render. He's not really open source, but like super helpful.
Really?
Yeah, so, like helped us a lot in understanding and telling us that it's okay. Like, you're fine. Like, keep going. Like, I think he was super helpful as well. I'd say these two primarily. David Kramer from Sentry as well. I think
awesome.
we loved meeting him. Mo, Igor, and I just sent him a call.
What did he say? Like, he's the most opinionated guy. So I mean, he'll say that himself, right?
Yeah, it was interesting, basically, right? Like, we went to him for fundraising advice, actually, and he's like, guys, just keep doing it until you find money. Like, it's hard. David
Kramer.
Yeah.
Legend.
Absolute legend. Yeah. Super helpful. We spoke to him a couple of times. Went to him initially for advice. I think the takeaway primarily was you got to keep putting in the reps.
Yeah.
And it's hard initially. And people don't believe in you until they do, and then they don't stop believing in you. And that's how the Valley works. And
see, you want people to believe in you when you're in your darkest hours, but actually they'll start believing you once it's already going well.
Yeah. And he said something super interesting. He said that once people believe in you and you hit some sort of escape velocity, you don't necessarily crave validation anymore from external factors, anybody else except your customers, right? Like, nobody else matters after a point where capital becomes easy to get. It becomes a commodity. It becomes you need the best partner initially until you hit escape velocity, and then you hit it or you don't. And then maybe you try another iteration or basically grow the company, right? Like, that's how most companies work. And like, David was really candid in the sense that he shared a lot of nuggets around how people raise if they're building a dev tool in the Valley, but also in the sense that, guys, just keep putting in the reps.
Don't give up.
Yeah, 100%. Like, there was a point, by the way, David Kramer, absolute cold email, like nothing else. Hey, David, we're building this thing and like we're in SF and like, can we speak? And like, yeah, response in a couple of minutes. And like, yeah, why don't you show up in my office tomorrow? And then,
damn.
Yeah, super, like, I can't imagine that happening here, to be honest. No. Not to be dissing London. I think London's an awesome place. But like, just that interaction it's like fuel, right? Like, especially when you don't know what you're doing and you're running around like a headless chicken, and that's your most vulnerable point as a company, because like, you crave validation from anybody around you, right? Like, investors or customers who could pay, people who can say things or say nice or not nice things, basically. So you're so vulnerable that a good piece of feedback can take you really, really high, and like a very bad piece of feedback can take you. And that happened multiple times, by the way. Like, there were days where like we would speak to somebody, they'd give us not so great feedback, and we'd be like, shit.
And were they like a user, or they were just like random person?
I think it's a mix. We didn't. So one good thing, actually, in hindsight, is that if a person was relevant to the company, maybe as a user, we spoke to EMs at companies like Snowflake and Databricks and whatnot. We attended Infra-SF meetups. Great initiative by Vertex, I think. Like,
oh yeah, shout out Megan.
Yeah, shout out. Massive. I think Igor even flew to New York a couple of times. We attended a couple in SF. Like, I think the group that they've assembled is great. I think there were a couple in the Convex office, if I'm not wrong, in SF. Convex, which is ex-Dropbox, I think they just released Chef, which is super cool as well. It's like their bold.new wrapper.
Oh, yeah.
It's super cool, by the way. I built like a as an aside, I built like a Google Drive alternative in like
Did you?
one shot. Yeah, it's crazy. Like called it Open Drive.
Wow.
It's actually
Nice.
it's out there.
Yeah.
But I digress. But what I'm trying to say is we found enough people, relevant people, who gave us the right advice at the right time, and it kept us afloat. And the advice wasn't rocket science. It was just to say, keep doing the right things that you're doing, and eventually the value will give you what you crave.
Yeah.
It could be capital, it could be customers, whatever it is, but like you got to keep putting in the reps. And I think we actually believe in the loops, right? Like I spoke about user loops, I spoke about monetization loops. There's also funding loops, and like there's an iteration even with raising money. Who do you speak to? You know, what do investors really care about? We got lucky that we met Brett. Again, Daksh introduced us to Brett.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
From
Greptile.
yeah, Greptile.
Yeah, great company, great guy.
Yeah.
Great intro as well. And Brett moves super fast. He thinks like an engineer as well.
Yeah.
He understands how open source works. He understands the implications that AI will have on DevOps and our thesis on it. And it was great to chat just as a technical chat, basically, right? Like, what do people use your tool for? What do you charge for? How are you going to grow? And like, it's super interesting in the sense that it felt like we were talking to another engineer. And the speed at which he moved from a decision perspective as well was super impressive to us personally.
Yeah. What is that kind of speed like?
Well, Initialize was super fast. We spoke to them on a Friday, I think. Partner call on Monday, decision Tuesday.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. I think that level of conviction was extremely, extremely validating and helpful.
Yeah.
And yeah, since then we've also grown super fast as well.
Amazing.
I think while raising, we had the order of magnitude with maybe 2.5x lesser daily deployments than we do today. And we've just continued to grow the open source thing. The enterprise stuff is coming. It's admittedly slower than we'd like, and I think it will be slower than we'd like for a while. But the open source stuff keeps growing, and we'll keep doing our best there as well.
Yeah, that's super, super cool. Yeah. Damn, like what a journey. Like,
yeah, it's interesting, man. And looking back, right, like every single, I don't know, iteration, maybe week, you look back and you think about the week, but then you look back at the month and you'll be like, what the hell? And then you look back at like a quarter and you'll be like, oh my God, I genuinely cannot believe. I think we're filming this, in April?
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. It doesn't feel like April. It feels like, I don't know, I'm in 2029 or something. Like, it just feels like stuff is moving at that speed, especially for the last 6 to 12 months. It just feels like, I think it's a function of how fast AI is moving as well. Like, MCPs weren't a thing like a year ago, right? Like,
for like even like, it's like 2 months ago, a month ago, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
even like,
I think they released it and it didn't catch on until somebody made it mainstream.
oh yeah, that's what you're saying. Yeah, it's insane. And then another thing that I think we did touch on this before, but I think that's something that you guys did like extremely well. And you were almost like notorious for this. I feel like sometimes like people, when Digger came up on Hacker News, it was like, oh, those guys are like, they release a new thing like every week or something. Yeah. But you were like literally shipping like a new product, launching on Product Hunt, launching on Hacker News, everything like once a week or even more.
Yeah.
Like 22 products or something.
Yeah, that was
Product Hunt.
2 years ago, man. It was crazy. That's actually how we stumbled on the open source thing, by the way. It's so ingrained in us that if we don't launch something, it could be a feature, it could be something, right?
Yeah.
It feels like something isn't right. Like, it feels like we're doing something wrong. Like, why haven't we launched something in the last, how many ever days, weeks, months, whatever. And it helped us a lot in building cadence of what are we working on? Do users care about it? And I think the loops philosophy actually comes from there. Like, right, like go and give it to people. Do they care about this? Oh, they don't. Cool. Let's move on to the next thing. Oh, they care about this. Let's dive deeper. And that was like the fork. And you go a little deeper and you realize, oh, maybe this is a dead end. And then you try something else. And like, yeah, initially it was make AWS easier for everyone. I think Mo and Igor had a thesis of generating Terraform under the hood, which actually helped us a lot in the end because like
it became the
thing,
the expertise.
Yeah,
I remember that Igor, like the thing that I think I take away from like Digger, like that I've learned from you guys, is like I remember Igor saying like is like cause I think I mentioned this on the one, but like I was like sort of like working like 1 day a week with you guys like a little bit back in the day, and it was like, okay, we're gonna ship something, and Igor was like, we have to ship something today, and it's like if we can't do it today, that means it's the wrong thing, and it's like we have to scope it in, and we have to just make sure that it's something that we can do today, and we're gonna launch it today, and we're gonna do the whole thing, and it was like really a cool way to think of it. And maybe it sounds obvious when you say it, but it's like, I think almost no one works like that.
I think it's radical and helpful, and radical and opinionated and helpful, that way of thinking. That 1 day is become slightly longer now.
Now this was like
this was before we figured it.
This was years ago.
Like 22, 23, something like that.
But,
22, I think.
But the open source Digger, what you launched with probably wasn't a day, but it wasn't like you shipped it really fast, right?
It was a week, I think. It was barely worked. It was a concept mostly. There was something that people could try, but it barely worked. I say it barely worked, but like people still used it. People still liked it. I think incrementally what we've done is, I spoke about micro personas, and I think as you go up the ladder, right? Like there's the absolute tinkerer who hacks on anything that's available. Give him a nail and he'll start hitting a, I don't know, wall. That kind of guy, a software wall. That's what I mean, like a proverbial software wall. But like there's that kind of early adopter, and there's a buyer in PG&E on the top, right? Like an enterprise buyer there. And I think there's about 10,000 layers between those two guys. It's genuinely like it exists, and you can solve for the next layer in a very short amount of time, incrementally. Right? Like so that was built for the bottommost layer.
It's not split like 3 layers.
It isn't. It's way more, I think.
That's what you're saying.
And if you're solving for the next incremental layer, you can scope it down to that person. That I genuinely think there are those many. Like if there is $100 million business in the category, it means that there are layers to this business, and the layers are not in the single digits or the double digits. I think there are multiple layers. 10,000 is a bit of an exaggeration.
It's a really cool way to think of it, actually.
And if you work in layers, you can incrementally start focusing on the next minute problem that you can scope down and say, okay, what is the thing that we can solve in a time box manner that this guy's senior in his team would appreciate. This guy is a bit of a, and I'm saying this like, this guy's a bit of a hacker. He likes cutting corners, but his manager doesn't. His manager would actually like this one extra thing. Let's work on that one extra thing. But that guy's manager has 4 more direct reports. And like that guy would want something else. But like that's how you tend to go up market. And I think the best products actually are products which are across layers. You start and then, and you know, in CRMs, HubSpot similar, right? Like they started SME, and you choose your wedge. And in open source generally, especially DevTools, you got to start at the bottommost layer, right? Like you got to get adoption from there, because they're the ones most comfortable using stuff that's broken, that barely works, whatnot. And then you climb up the ladder. The bar's getting higher every day. People are shipping more polished stuff. People are shipping cool stuff. People are shipping stuff that, you know, can work across layers on day 0 almost. But the more incremental you get, and this is something I've learned from Igor, to be honest, which goes back to the scoping, making it a short time frame, getting the next user excited about this thing. It helps because your foundation's solid. Like you can be rest assured that everybody underneath this guy in the org chart are already happy.
Yeah.
Everybody underneath this person isn't going to be complaining about this. This person's where the buck stops right now.
Huh.
From a GDM perspective, it helps to think that way.
Yeah.
And maybe above that, you're not the right tool yet. And that's okay. You're creating a market, and then you keep moving. That's how we think about it. And why we think about it this way is because of our past exploits of product hunt and whatnot, right? Like, it's just because we shipped so much that that's one of the only ways we can think, in some sense, right? Like, it's a strength and could be a weakness as well. So, yeah.
I think it's a strength. It's
yeah, we think so too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So now, like, what's the vision now? Like, I guess this is like kind of like you managed to kind of like you had some hard times. You realized that you built something great. The traction's growing. You've raised money. Good investors. Like, you're moving to SF as well, which I'm sad about, but that's
London's always going to be like, all our families like London. We like London. London's never going to go away. But coming to the vision, I think a large part of it, this may sound a bit vague, but like a large part of it is to make infra cool again, if that makes sense. It's to ensure that people don't despise it. It isn't as hard as people think it is. I don't know if you remember, but we had this placard that we held in front of Big Ben, Igor and I. It said AWS need not be hard back in the day.
Yeah.
And that's still true. That's the premise of infrastructure as code in general. That's the premise of Terraform. That's the premise of a lot of infra tooling that exists today. But we want people to love infra.
Yeah.
And I think nobody goes and hacks on something which like you don't for example, you don't wake up on a weekend and say, I'm going to go and try the new compliance software, right? Like, that never happens, right?
Yeah.
And a large part of enterprise infra tooling is like that. Like, it's not something that people do out of love. It's people do out of necessity.
Yeah.
And that's a user experience thing, right? Like, and a large part of how Digger's worked till today, the open source thing, is that people really love using it to deploy Terraform.
Yeah.
And non-ops engineers like it because like they can do stuff and pull requests, and it's all guardrail.
It runs in GitHub Actions.
Yeah, it does.
It's super cool.
Yeah. Secure. Nothing leaves your CI. Scalable. You can reuse your compute. So that's the thesis behind Digger, the open source project. So yeah, man, we want to make infra cool again. We want developers to love doing it, to love handling infra, and actually build stuff that's scalable because,
it's hard.
It's hard.
Yeah.
And I think AI has a very strong play here. We have a few prototypes, nothing public yet, hopefully public by the time we launch this.
Saw a brief preview last night.
Yeah. You did.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see. It's very alpha right now, but the possibilities change with every model update, and every MCP's opened up a whole new avenue. And this is with AI specifically, right? Like, stuff you couldn't do 3 months ago, you can do today.
Yeah.
And there's a way to think about it that, okay, these models are going to improve enough, protocols are going to improve enough that maybe you can dream out of the world and it's still going to be possible in the next few months.
Dream out the world in the sense you're thinking I want this, and then you can have it. In terms of
interestingly, that's already exists. That exists. That's a part of the demo you saw yesterday. You want this and this exists. It's possible, but asterisk. Asterisk. Security.
It could be what you want.
It could be what you want.
But it will. But you need to get to the point.
The manager at PG&E is going to say,
it will be what.
the manager, like the topmost layer that I spoke about,
Yeah.
it's going to adopt it like later on. But
Okay.
like honestly though, there's a whole new like AI is going to change how infra is done for sure.
Yeah.
If anybody knows how, as on today, I'd honestly hand to heart say they're lying. Like you don't know how reliable they are. You don't know how secure it is. You don't know what you don't know. There are so many unknowns basically, and it's got to be tried by that hacker persona, and tried and tested and roasted before it sees the public eye. I think, but yeah, super excited to continue growing the open source community. I think we want to be the de facto solution, and the most easiest solution to get started with if you want to deploy any ISE.
Not just Terraform.
Not just Terraform. You can already deploy multiple ISEs. You can deploy OpenTofu. You can use Pulumi with Digger. But yeah, I'd say any ISE in any CI for the open source project. It's currently GitHub Actions, and we have alpha support for GitLab and Bitbucket pipelines. But like the eventual dream is like have an orchestrator for infrastructure as code, use it with any CI, with any ISE, and you can safely use it with your team, and it's gonna have, security and compliance out of the box kind of thing. That's the primary aim, and that's the sole aim that we're working on.
And then you can be like, hey, like I built this prototype with one VM, and actually I want it to be able to like run on like have like 10 worker VMs,
something like that,
separated out.
Yeah,
and then it's gonna change it. Like
exactly.
You can just talk to it like cursor, but like
Well, I think Igor shared this with you yesterday, right? Like it's almost like when cursor's done, Digger starts. And that's the aim. It will sound really ambiguous without something to use and try. So I think it is really helpful to have something people can play with ASAP, and that's what we're working on. While ensuring that the core engine continues to generate usage and revenue. And it's a hard challenge. We are resource strapped, and we're growing, but like we're still resource strapped, and we will be for a while. So yeah, it is what it is. But we're super excited. Like we wake up every day excited to, solve problems.
Actually, a question, because you have been so like it's just been you three, and now you've raised. Like, who are you gonna hire first?
The exercise of who we are going to hire is actually happening as we speak. We have this Slack channel, like it says cool people we should work with. Added a couple people there recently, but like we're still we need to define problems that need to be solved by teammates, and ensure that roles are split accordingly. We're working on it. We're hiring super soon. We probably are hiring by the time this is out.
Okay.
So you can check our website.
But you're gonna hire? Do you think engineering is
engineering is the only thing that matters? Yeah. I think founder-led marketing and sales until like much longer. I think it's a massive learning experience as well, right? Like in each loop, you learn something else that you can implement in product. And I think that's something that we want to keep founder-led for the near term at least. So for sure.
And you're gonna hire someone in SF probably.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Get an office. Are you going you're going fully in person?
Yeah. In person 5 days a week. That's I think Igor was super opinionated about this earlier. We agreed, we disagreed, we agreed, we disagreed, we went back and forth on it. But I think, especially when it's the three of us and it's been like that for a while, really helps when we're in the same room. Just cost of context switching is much lower. And we ship a lot more. Like just the amount of stuff we ship and like the amount of stuff users see is like magnitude more than what it is without us being in different rooms. Also, we can course correct super fast. Like, you don't work on the wrong thing in a silo for too long. And that helps too.
You've got to be like, hey, like, can you talk later? Oh yeah, I'm free at like
Yeah, exactly.
4, and like where it's like, let me interrupt.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's the proverbial remote versus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's obviously companies that do it really well.
Yeah.
But,
And I think it takes a lot of work, handbooks, whatnot, like
yeah.
manuals. For people who want it badly enough, I think some companies do it really well. I think Loops does it well. I think Postdoc does it really well. GitLab does it well.
Railway
Does it well. So I think, yeah, there's a right. You either work really hard on that, but it also stems from the personal preference of the OG person deciding that it becomes remote. Like,
yeah.
I'm assuming that there are reasons why a company X went remote initially, and then they scaled
for a lot.
and then they scaled on that foundation in some sense. We are actually default in-person first kind of people. So we scale on top of that in some sense.
Yeah. Super, super cool. All right. One thing I wanted to ask you. So if you've been on this journey like 4 years?
Yeah, 4 years totally. Yeah.
What would you be saying to yourself like at the beginning? If you could go talk to yourself back then.
Interesting. For myself, I'd say just focus on the next, like if this was a road, focus on the next 10 meters. Have sight of, I think it matters from a vision perspective. It matters from like a lot of times we've stopped short of having the long-term we have had the long-term vision, but like just because we have that long-term vision doesn't mean that we can't take a couple of strides elsewhere and then see if it works and come back. So basically what I'm trying to get at is focus on what's in front of us. On I would say focus on what's in front of me and just solve the next problem that exists, right? Like incrementally you will start solving it in the right direction. And it's much easier to course correct as well if you just look at the next 10 meters. Have sight of that, but don't really be overly worried of that, if that makes sense. So basically, step by step is what I'd say. I'd say just focus on the next couple of steps, and then the next couple of steps, and then the next couple of steps, and it helps if you think that way. And thinking too far ahead too early just gives you the yo-yo effect that I spoke about. Oh, euphoria! Wow, this can happen. Boom! Oh, doomsday! Oh, euphoria! And then that's a bit hard on yourself mentally and physically, and it affects quality of work as well. So step by step, and you will figure it out. And our fundamental way of thinking is sound. I'd say as a team. So if we do stuff step by step, I don't see why we wouldn't, get somewhere tangible.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So, yeah.
Okay, wait. Just because I know you think about this stuff a lot.
Yeah.
Like, which companies do you wish you had ownership equity in of DevTools right now?
Very, very good question.
You can't say Windsurf just because they're about to be acquired right now.
Super early, where do you want me to go? Like Cursor for sure.
Yeah.
Like Cursor for sure. Great question. I think I'm also still super keen on like commercial open source, but for example, right? Like a resend. Right, like it's not open source though, but like it's built on top of new.email, not new.email, React email, right? It's used by, but it's a very technical product, but the end user is like a consumer, if that makes sense. There's a new Gmail alternative that I keep seeing called zero.email, right? It's open source.
The actual numbers, right?
So like a cap.so, right? Like a Loom alternative, right? I'm super keen on like technical open source ethos, but end user being anyone. like that's my personal opinion. That's what I think about a lot. Infra specifically, I'm glad I have equity in Digger. That's what I'll say. That's what I'll say, because super bullish on what we're working on. Browser base is interesting. I think browser base, browser use is super, tool use in general, and browser use specifically is super interesting.
Paul is a beast.
Yeah, Paul is a beast. He's been super helpful too, by the way.
Yeah,
helped us with a lot of advice and was very kind to invite us to his office as well, and it was great.
Sick.
But yeah, I'd say, yeah, companies with an open source ethos dealing with end consumers who are anyone, like a Loom alternative or a open source, real commercial open source stuff. And that's something that I'm super keen on. I would be super keen on. Or yeah, stuff which is frontier. Like browser use is very hard to define a use case, right? Like it's like, can you imagine browser use being used day to day? Very hard today, but it's so obvious that browser use is going to be what agents use in 6 to 12 months down the lane, given how fast things are moving, right?
Explain browser use.
Well, agents agentically using.
You mean a product called Is there a product called browser?
No.
Oh, sorry.
Browser
Sorry.
use
Okay,
is a thing. Yeah.
Okay.
I think there is like.
Yeah, that's why I thought there was like a.
Yeah, I think there is, but.
Yeah.
But what I was
like
trying
an open
to.
source project.
Yeah, what I was trying to get at is browser use in general, without it being a product.
Yeah.
Of course, like I'm stating the obvious here, but like.
Yeah.
It's great. I think Paul mentioned that VCs were talking about this before, when he was in Mux, even, right? Like a couple of years ago, saying it's a frontier thing. It's going to be there like 10 years down the lane and 2 years down the lane. It actually exists. And like, like that's how timelines have shrunk.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think TLDR, browser-based cursor, frontier stuff, I'd be super helpful. Like if I had a chance, I'd love equity there.
Yeah.
And any consumer focused commercial open source company. I'd still be keen on understanding what the actual OG SaaS company is making as well, right? Like how much did Loom sell for? Like how much is Loom worth if there's a Loom alternative, right?
Yeah.
Like think there are some
I think Loom sold for like
close to $1 billion.
Yeah.
980.
And then because the guy wrote the article about like
Vinay.
Yeah.
I read yesterday that he's become an intern at a mechanical engineering company.
Really? That's cool.
He's a hacker, man. I love his mentality.
Yeah.
I don't know him as a person, but I've read a lot of his writing, and I genuinely think the guy is cracked in a good sense, right? Like he's a cracked guy, cracked engineer. What you see is what you get in some sense. So,
I respect. Like I saw a lot of people like kind of dunking that someone would say that they had all this money and they weren't rich, and people were like, "How out of touch can you be?"
Yeah,
but it's like he's literally proving the point that
exactly,
that money is not ever, like he's literally making that point that it actually is not the most important thing for like having purpose and stuff.
Yeah, man. I think one thing I've come to admire is honesty, right? Like it's super, like it's also because it builds trust in the reader or the person you're speaking to, whatever. But secondly, right, like you're just stating facts as they are, and that's should be obvious to the to layperson that's how life should be. But like it's a bit of an outlier scenario here. But yeah, massive respect for what he built. I think even they had a massively resilient story initially, right? Like they maxed out their credit cards and whatnot. I think he spoke about it extensively in multiple podcasts. And you know, they worked really hard, and then they raised some money, and then they pivoted multiple times, and then they stumbled upon Loom because users used a tool that needed to be used a certain way, in a different way, and like they found out, oh, Loom could exist as a thing, right? Like that's their story, but like maybe because it resonates because it's super similar to ours in some sense. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I think honesty is actually like I always think this because obviously with scaling DevTools, like
Yeah.
it's the interesting stories are the ones where people are honest, because it's not easy, and you can obviously paint things in like this magical picture, and you're just a genius, and but it's not interesting. And I think of like the people that I follow on Twitter and stuff, like most of the one, like let's say for example like Peter Levels, right? Like I think people find him interesting because he's extremely honest.
Yeah.
You may not agree with him,
Yeah.
but he'll say what he thinks.
Exactly.
And it's like, I think most of the people, even like a Paul Graham or someone, like he's happy to say like what he actually thinks, and then people like that. But it's so hard to get in the habit of actually saying what you think.
It's interesting. It's a very interesting discussion. I think speaking like that is crazy. Like, it's a privilege, first of all, to be able to say that publicly.
Yeah.
But in my ideal end state, I'd actually be super keen to be as candid as I want to be on the internet. There's multiple factors not related to anything else that we've spoken here that prevents me personally from doing that. But like, man, like, I love reading levels. You're 100% correct. Like, you look at a PG, you look at the levels, and you're like, man, they're talking like how I would talk to somebody across a table. And
it doesn't feel like they're like presenting something. They're just like saying what they actually think.
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
no layers behind
absolutely.
it. Like,
I fully endorse.
Yeah, I think David Kramer does that.
Yeah.
Extreme level. I think Mitchell speaks pretty like honesty on his views on things. Yeah. And that's like really refreshing.
Yeah, I agree. Massive respect for Mitchell as well. I think as a team we respect him a lot.
Yeah.
I think yeah, it's cool. I think like people would get so much like I think a lot of DevTools would, their content and everything would just do so much better if they were just honest. It's the best marketers are the, like, you look at like a grep tile today, right? There are so many. By the way, grep tile is one of the tools that if I could, I would kind of
throw that in on that.
But like, there's so many today. There's like a Code Rabbit. There's a grep tile. There's like dime a dozen. Like a code review AI tool has become a commodity.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you can differentiate on features, whatnot, but like, it's a commodity in a good sense because people are willing to pay for it, and like you can actually charge for it.
Useful.
It's useful. Commodity is not necessarily bad. That's also another learning, by the way. Like, you can have your edge with having a commodity piece of software. Like, you can have a ketchup company and still make a ton of money making ketchup and differentiate on branding, differentiate on whatever, right? Like, it's a different discussion though, like, a separate discussion. What I was trying to get at though is, where were we? Like, I lost my train of thought.
Sorry, we're just absolutely talking rubbish.
Yeah.
we were talking about honesty.
Yeah, grep tiles marketing. Grep tiles marketing is what I wanted to speak about. Daksh is super honest about stuff he writes about. He wrote about fundraising. He wrote about branding. He wrote about energy drinks.
Long hours and stuff.
Yeah, long hours.
He got railed on the long hours.
About even Delve did that recently. Delve is this software company. Actually, we work with them. It's crazy, right? Like, but long hours debate is stupid, man. Like, you work as long as you wanna as a company, and I think you that's my opinion, right? Like, work long if you want to, work short if you want to. Did stuff get done?
That's your choice.
Right? Like, did stuff get done at the end of the day? You do it in a minute, you do it in an hour, you do it in a day. It's up to you, right? Like,
it's the wrong optimization.
Yeah, probably. And it's crazy, right? Like, it's bait, it's rage bait at this point. and if people are using that to generate usage or revenue for their product, I'm all for it, man. Like, go for it. Like, if that is helping you generate more leads or revenue or, I don't know, page visits or whatever, kudos. Like, I think it genuinely is rage bait at this point. Like, I can tell, oh my God, you need to work 9, 9, 6, 7 or something. And then people are going to be like, oh, this guy's crazy, but what's he building? and then you filter for the right people, basically. That's how a lot of people are using it. Personally, I think you do you, and and measure by outcomes, not by input in
Yeah,
some
yeah.
sense. But I think that's the ethos of our company as a whole. Large part of what I think about culture comes from Igor, and he's very opinionated about it and has strong opinions, which I kind of agree with. But yeah, what I was trying to get at is that greptile has crazy good marketing, which is what you see is what you get, and you kind of trust the tool more.
Yeah.
I can actually go out and say, like, I trust greptile as the OG code review tool. We have two. We have two AI code reviews on
Really?
every PR.
They review each other.
Yeah, they do actually.
Actually, really?
We have Code Rabbit, and then greptile thumbs ups that.
Really?
So, yeah, it's crazy, man. Like, we have two AI code reviews and one human review, and then
Damn.
yeah, it's crazy. We have two because one is free for open source companies, and we're like, why not? Like,
Code Rabbit.
Code Rabbit's free for
Yeah.
open source. greptile is too, but if you're commercial open source, you gotta pay for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, massive respect for Daksh for the intro and for the product that he's built. I think he's the OG, man. Like,
He's a cool guy.
yeah,
He's a very cool guy.
yeah.
Dude. Super fun.
Likewise, man.
Yep. I'm gonna miss you in SF. Hopefully I'm gonna come out.
Yeah,
But,
please do.
yeah.
Come to our office, work out of our office. Hopefully we have one by then. Hopefully all legal, compliance, immigration, everything's done by then.
Yeah, maybe you're still allowed to work. We record this.
This is London, guys.
Yeah.
This is London's not that bad.
Yeah. But yeah.
But yeah,
So, and if people are using Terraform or any IAC, as we've
Any IAC,
established,
yeah.
they should use Digger.
100%. And we love your feedback. Please roast it. We want to get better incrementally as quickly as possible.
Amazing. Thank you. Thanks, Utpal. And thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks, Jack. Pleasure.